This is a mock safety assessment and crisis response plan. Okay. Well, hi Paige, it's nice to see you today. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, I'm all right.
Okay, that's a little different than what you usually respond with. Did something
Yeah.
happen today?
Well, not necessarily today. It's just been a hard week and I just have been busy with the kids and the baby's been sick and my husband is, my husband and it just has been a really hard week. Really busy.
Yeah, especially with, summer vacation. I know that was one of your biggest concerns, right? Having to take
Yeah.
care of all the kids. And I know you mentioned last week your baby got sick, so that's been a lot to handle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just been a lot. It's like hard to try and figure out how to keep them busy all the time. And I know they're not that old, but like kindergarten and a 2-year old is a lot. Maybe for me, I don't know. I just feel like other moms do it so much better than me and I just shouldn't be struggling this much.
I mean, let's be honest. At that age, all kids are struggles, right? And I
Yeah.
mean, you have to take care of yourself too, right? Like, this is why you come to therapy. You recognize that you need a little bit of support in your mental health aspect, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, the amount of parents we get in general is huge, right? So I know
Mhm.
that you're doing the best with the resources that you have, the time that you have, and the supports that you have.
Yeah. Thanks for saying that. Yeah, it just a lot of times it feels like I'm completely alone.
Mm. And when you say like being alone, like how does that make you feel?
Um, well, sometimes sometimes the loneliness is just so much that I feel like nobody even notices how much I struggle.
Mm.
And if they do notice or if I like vent about it, they just say I'm like overreacting or like I chose to be a mother and it just sometimes I wonder if people would even notice that I was gone.
Mm. Those are some pretty intense feelings. I mean,
Yeah.
to feel alone is one thing, but to feel like no one's gonna notice that you're gone, that's a big jump.
Yeah, it is. And I haven't, I mean, I would never do that. I would never actually like kill myself, right? Because I could never leave my kids and oh my gosh, like Lord help my husband if my children were all in his hands. But um sometimes I just wonder like maybe I just want like the validation that they would miss me, that like I have a purpose because most days it feels like I don't.
Wow. Thank you for opening up with that. Yeah, that's what we like to call passive thoughts of suicide, right? So I know you mentioned you wouldn't necessarily do anything to hurt yourself, but in this case, right, like if something were to happen, it seems like you wouldn't necessarily be unhappy about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just feel like someone could be a better mom than me, you know.
Hmm. And these thoughts, like, did they just happen these like past couple of weeks that we've been talking, or is this something that you've been struggling with for a while?
Mm, probably just more recently. I just like this last week feel like I kind of hit a wall and got in a fight with my husband because I just complained about how hard that day was and the baby being sick and school being out and all these things and he just like basically just told me that I was doing a really shitty job and that like why would I complain? I don't have to go to work. I don't have to do any of these things and I just felt like if he got remarried to another woman, like she'd probably be able to be a better mom than I could.
Hmm.
And so I feel like the feelings of feeling like I have no purpose, or like I guess what you would call like passive suicide. I've just been this week of wondering, like kind of playing scenarios in my head, like what would my kids' lives look like without me?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like all that negative talk, right? And those arguments are now starting to reflect within yourself, right? Like with that negative self-talk.
Hmm. Yeah.
And sorry, go ahead.
I know that I'm like, I know that I tend to beat myself up. And when I get into this headspace, sometimes it feels like, oh gosh, here we go. Like, this is just how it's going to be for a little while. And it's hard to like get unstuck.
You beat me to it. I was gonna say, and is that something that happens during a specific time of the day? Like, what is like the time periods with that?
I feel like probably like in the afternoon, like my husband's
Okay.
not home from work yet, and I'm still with the kids, but I've spent the whole day with the kids, and I'm just so tired and haven't had a moment to myself. And I think those are the moments that I feel like so alone.
Yeah, I mean, you're exhausted, right? Because you
Mhm.
have to take care of the kids, you have to take care of the house, you're trying to take care of yourself.
Yeah,
It's a lot to manage for one person.
yeah, it is. It is, but it's okay. It'll be fine.
Is it okay? You're having thoughts of suicide.
Yeah, you're right, but I would never do anything. I couldn't leave them. I couldn't leave my kids.
What about self-harming? I know it's not necessarily, acting on these thoughts of suicide, but have you noticed any self-harm tendencies?
No,
Okay.
no, I haven't done anything like that.
And what about any feelings towards your husband? I know that that's where a lot of your frustration stems from. Have you ever had thoughts of wanting to hurt him or anybody else?
No,
Okay.
no. Sometimes I think about leaving him, but then like what would I do? The money and the kids and the support and stuff, and I just know he would make it difficult. So I could stick it out for a little longer while the kids grow up and figure it out later.
Mm. Well, I mean, I am concerned for your safety, right? Like this is something that's pretty new to you, and I do want to make sure that you leave today's session with at least a couple of tools to kind of help alleviate some of those stressors and some of those thoughts. Does that sound like something you want to do today?
Yeah, yeah, I feel like it could be helpful just to even have you help me kind of like figure out what to do from here. Because I just don't like this is just so much. And the last sessions have been really helpful to just like talk it out. So I was really looking forward to talking to you today because it's just like I said, a busy week, a tough week.
Yeah, I mean, this is your you time. This is page time. We literally block it out for that,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, yeah. I need this.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can go over this tool. It's called a safety plan, and it's basically in the title what it is, right? We're gonna go over some of those triggers that you mentioned, maybe even explore a couple more. And based on those triggers, we're gonna try and look for some coping skills and distractions that'll help in that moment to kind of alleviate some of those thoughts. Or I know you said it's a mindset that you get into, right? To kind of like pull you away from that.
Mm,
And we're going to look at some of those support systems that you do have and those who you can rely on. I also like to say use them as a distraction. It sounds a little bad, right? Don't shouldn't use people, but it's okay. In this case, it's okay. And then just, I know you said your kids are like a huge part of like your reason for living. So just exploring that a little more.
okay. Yeah, I'd like that.
Yeah, for sure. Here's a piece of paper and a pen.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And then by all means, title this whatever you feel is going to be best for you. Some people call it a crisis plan, crisis response plan, safety plan, plan B. just anything that you look at and you'll automatically associate it with, okay, these are my coping skills for when I have these thoughts of suicide.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect.
Perfect. Okay. Now we're gonna work in sections. And this first section, you can put number one, and you're gonna title that triggers and warning signs.
Okay.
And you did mention a couple at the beginning of this session. Do you recall what some of those were?
Um, I feel like some of my warning signs are like mm, feeling really like alone, really isolated. Um, and I like feel like maybe another warning sign is like I just lose a lot of motivation.
Okay.
Um, I think is that all the things that I said earlier?
I know you talked about feeling exhausted right at the
Yeah,
end of the day.
yeah, that's definitely one. But I that one I don't know if I can avoid having the kids. I feel like their ages are just exhausting in general, but definitely like I like end the day and I'm just like, ugh, like finally it's over. Like let me try and get enough sleep so that I can make it to tomorrow and get through tomorrow, but kind of like not looking forward to the next day.
Mm. And notice what you said right there, right? It's usually at the end of your day when you start feeling like this.
Hmm.
So I would definitely put that time frame in there. And
Okay.
any other times throughout the day that you've noticed you've had these thoughts?
Um, like I said, probably just like the afternoon. Night times, I feel like I'm just like so tired that if anything, I like dread the next day. But in the afternoons, I've noticed my mind kind of wandering into
Okay.
those head spaces and just barely getting by on taking care of my kids.
Yeah, definitely keep note of that. Let's explore a little bit more into that sleep. Do you feel like you struggle to fall asleep, or is that something that you have no issue with?
I don't really have an issue with falling asleep. It's just like waking up in the middle of the night, like with the sick baby and making sure that they're okay and that kind of thing this last week. Of course, like normally the littlest like sleeps through the night, but just this last week has been so exhausting because they haven't slept through the night. And so I've been having to wake up with them. And of course, my husband won't wake up for the baby. And so it's just like me on my own.
Yeah. Yeah, then I mean I would add that onto that list for sure, right? Any of those stressors,
Hmm.
right? Maybe putting some of those emotions that come up with,
Yeah.
your husband not helping you.
Yeah. That's a good idea. I think like I also put like overwhelmed. Like I start to just feel super overwhelmed with everything and like oh my gosh, like I have so many things that I need to do on top of taking care of the kids and then like of course I'm super like critical of myself. Like if I don't
Right.
get everything done that day, then I like beat myself up and I'm like, what did I even do all day? And I have to like try and remind myself like, oh, you did this, and this and this, but with the kids. And so sometimes it's just like overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I like that you put that all on your own. I would maybe write down self-critique or self like negative
Yeah,
talk,
yeah,
right? Because it sounds
definitely.
like when you start doubting yourself, right, or your ability to be a great mom, and you're a phenomenal mom. I mean, look at your kids. They're adorable, sweetest little things ever.
They
But,
are cute.
you seem to kind of go into that dark place when you start
Mhm.
critiquing yourself.
Yeah, yeah. And when I start to like get into that place, like I'm glad you reminded me because sometimes I have to remind myself like my kids are so sweet and so cute. It's just like those moments, and then I feel bad because I'm like not being not being kind to them or like just tired of them, even though they're just kids. Like it's not their fault and they don't know better. And I just, I know that that's like a me thing and that's like me being tired and self-critical. And I know that I can move past that and not be like that. I don't like being a mom like that, but that's just how I've felt this last week.
Yeah, it sounds like you're starting to burn out.
Yeah, right. And like, how do you burn out of your own children?
Trust me, I do too.
Okay.
They could take a toll on you, but no, like I think you have a lot of self-awareness in that aspect, right? In that range where you notice your behaviors are changing towards your kids. So that's a really good warning sign that you have already within yourself. You take a step
Mhm.
back and say, okay, let me reflect on what's going on. Let me reflect on what I'm feeling. And that's essentially what your triggers and warning signs is for.
Yeah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I mean, I encourage you to write down anything else that you feel you need to write down. I always like telling people, like, these are things, places, emotions,
Mhm.
other thoughts that come up. And please feel free to do that now. Or if you think of them throughout the session, like, add on to it, right? This is, again, I want to remind you, this is your safety plan. You can change it, add things, remove things as need be. And you can do that every day. If you need to review it every day, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I like what I have so far, but I definitely think I can probably notice more things throughout the week.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, if you feel like you're ready, we can move on to some of those coping skills and distractions, which is our second section.
Okay, perfect. Okay, I have it written down.
Okay, so I know these past couple of weeks we've been talking about what a self-care day would look like for Paige. Tell me, what has that been looking like?
That's a hard question. Something that I like really like to do that I kind of neglect is like my nighttime routine.
Okay.
Um, like I used to be so into like the moisturizer and the serums and the lotions and like I want to be I want to like do that more because I feel so much more beautiful and like refreshed and I'm getting older, so I need some of those serums to help with the wrinkles, things like that. And I just like haven't had time. And I feel so dead by the end of the day that it's like the last thing on my mind, even though I have everything sitting on the counter.
Okay. And I mean, it sounds like that would be like such a wonderful distraction for you, right? Like, just
Mm,
you end your day, you're tired, you're fatigued, but then going into, like your vanity area and seeing those things, right? And saying, okay, like, did I have a hard day today? Yes, but now it's time to focus on me and take care of me, not the other things I've tried to take care of throughout the day.
yeah, yeah, I think so. It's something that this week, if anything, I've thought like, oh, I really just should try and get back into that because it made such a difference in just like how I felt overall and like felt like me time.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, if you can, and if it's possible, right, even setting up reminders on your phone, right? Like, set a 5-minute timer. Okay, 5 minutes
Mm.
to myself. Lock yourself in the bathroom if you have to. Say, I'm gonna take a quick shower, or I, I'm having a stomach ache. Do something for yourself.
Yeah, yeah, I should. I should do that. I also really like listening to music, and I feel like a lot of the times now it's just like Sesame Street music and like things
Mm.
like that that I miss like my old music that I nor like adult music, right? Normal
Right.
music that I used to just like love that and I do like using that still like I'll tell my I'll tell my son like, "Okay, like let's listen to two of mommy's songs," and like he gets into it if I get into it, which sometimes is really nice.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. I think music is a great coping skill for a lot
Mhm.
of people, right? It's just that sense of decompressing, that sense of being with yourself and just enjoying that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like how you're already implementing that into your daily routine.
Yeah. Yeah, I like doing stuff like that. I think another distraction for me is like baking. I really like baking. I don't do it nearly as much because my kids will find it and will eat like tear through the whole thing, but I really like baking for like other people and like getting a chance to try it. And now that I'm thinking about it, like that's something that my husband loved that I did, that like he would come home from work and I'd like have something ready and I do have time in the afternoon, like, and my son's getting old enough that I could probably involve him in it and it'd be a fun activity. I just hopefully the baby's starting to feel better, so maybe I can start trying to do that.
Yeah, and I know you said your neighbor had kids, right? So baking for your
Hmm.
neighbor, maybe the kids can have a play date together, right? So you still get that adult interaction in those conversations that you're wanting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And my neighbor is such a good, she's like one of my best friends. So she's such a good support to me. I just haven't been I like kept away because kids are so contagious and it's just been like a sick week and so I didn't want my kids to get her kids sick and everything. So I definitely think I could reach out to her too and like she takes like we trade off with the kids all the time. So that's definitely
Right.
something we could do.
Yeah, and I like how you mentioned that she's a great support. That's actually what we're gonna go to into our next section. But before we do that, like, what about the coping skills that we've been learning in these last couple of sessions? Have you tried implementing any of them?
I tried the grounding technique this last week.
Hmm.
Um, the kids like just got over like a screaming thing and I just was feeling so overwhelmed and so I finally calmed them down and like tried the 5 4 3 2 1 like the senses
Hmm.
one and it was like really really helpful and when I got to the taste section I realized I hadn't eaten anything in like so long so I went and like got something to eat and like really focused on the taste and I don't know if like you meant to for me to like expand it out a little bit but I like just really tried to get in touch with like where I was and all those feelings and it was really helpful.
No, I love that. I mean, it's the same practice that we did like when you were in session, right? When we were in person, where I was like, what are those four things that you feel and describe what they feel like to you? Like, if you're able to go that in depth, that's even better, right? Just regulating
Yeah.
that nervous system, even practicing it with your kids, right? Helping them learn those skills as well. Like,
Yeah.
I think that'll be fantastic. And it serves as a good distraction too, right? Because you're focusing not just on grounding yourself, but also making sure that your kids are learning that skill so that if the time comes and any one of you is overwhelmed, you can just say, okay, like, let's put up our five senses and it'll
Hmm.
help all of you.
That's true. And I think my son would love something like that.
Yeah. What about the, what was it that we were discussing? The meditation that you were going to start practicing.
I do like that one. I have like turned it on before going to sleep at
Okay.
night, and even though I know I'll get woken up in the middle of the night, it's been really actually pretty nice to have kind of that white noise, but also be like told to relax. And I definitely should try something like that in the morning, like when I wake up before the kids are up and stuff. I think that would be really helpful too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have a great set of coping skills that you've been practicing and trying to implement, and your distractions are phenomenal, right? I mean, I think life has been kind of hard for you lately, but you never lost sight of those things that you loved and that you love doing. It's just learning how to get back into that rhythm.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And now that we're on that topic of, things that you love doing, I know you mentioned baking and being with your neighbor. We're going into part three, which is our social supports.
Yeah,
So,
so I talked about my neighbor and she's one of my
mhm,
best friends. I also am really close with my sister-in-law and my brother. They just live out of state and they have a little girl too. And so just this week it just feels like We just haven't been able to have time or cross paths, but for the most part, I can call either of them at any point and talk to them, and they're always there for me.
That's good. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, if you're able to reach out, right, even like a little FaceTime session with them, like, hey, like, how are you guys, just checking in? Like I said, you don't have to necessarily tell your social supports, like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm feeling crappy, or I noticed I have thoughts of suicide. Like, no, like, if you feel like you're not ready to process some of those feelings yet, or you don't feel like you're in that safe space to do so, then just use them as a distraction, just to check
Yeah.
in, see how they're doing, talk to them a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely can do that. I can probably call them after the meeting today.
Good, good. Anybody else that you think you can put on that list?
Mm, I hope soon my husband, and I know that me and you have been working on different skills and how to communicate better and things like that. And so I think just learning some of that and knowing how to communicate with him. He's really receptive. I just know he's tired and doing a lot too to support us, and I'm so grateful for him. Just sometimes it doesn't feel like he understands me. And um that can be really hard. So I hope my husband soon, and he can in some areas, but this week it just didn't feel like he was really there for me.
Yeah. I mean, I would still put him on that list, but maybe put like a little star or a little like question mark next to it. That way
Yeah.
you're also aware of like, okay, it can go one of two ways. I have to realize that we're still learning those skills, right? Because you're still trying to convince them to come into couples therapy. So it's
Yeah.
a work in progress, but
Yeah.
hopefully soon.
Yeah. I think so. I think we're making some progress.
Good, good. I'm glad to hear. And anybody else you'd like to add on that list, or do you feel like you're set for now?
I think that's probably good.
Okay. Okay. So then the next part is we're still in supports, but we're looking at your professional supports.
Okay. Well, I'd probably put you.
Good.
Um, I'd probably put my, this is gonna sound silly, but my kid's pediatric doctor. It's like an old friend of mine, and my kids have been seeing him for since they were born, um and he's just really in the know and like such a good support to talk to and stuff. So sometimes he'll just like when I'm reaching out for the kids, especially this last week when I was taking the baby into the doctor just to make sure, he was also asking and checking in with me.
Yeah, yeah. Like I don't think it's silly at all. I think it's actually pretty smart, right? Like they work with the family, they work with the family dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great support to have.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I don't know. I can't really think of anything else.
Have you ever called into our hotline?
I haven't since I was like a teenager.
Well, that's always still an option. And I don't know if you remember, but it's actually 24/7,
Okay.
365.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like those days where, we aren't meeting up, or where you can't go back to sleep after trying to put the baby back to bed, like you do feel like you need to talk, or you're noticing that these thoughts are starting to come up again, like reach out to them, right? They're
Mhm.
also trained professionals.
Yeah, that's a good one to put down. And what's their number again?
Let's see. You don't have a Utah area code, do you?
No.
Okay. So I would generally suggest 988, but if you have a number that's like outside of the state, it's going to just reroute you to a different state, right? And that's okay
Okay.
by all means. Everybody's trained. We're all empathetic in that sense. But if you want more connection to resources and just kind of that sense of like, I'm talking to someone who understands where I'm coming from and where I live, I would suggest calling the direct number, and
Okay.
I can give that to you. It's
Okay.
801
Okay.
587 3000.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. And with them, you can also call them, right? But you would ask for our mobile crisis teams. Have you heard of them before?
I don't think so.
So what it is you have a therapist and a peer support, right? A peer support is someone who's gone through their own mental health struggles or navigated that system, either like personally or by someone they know. They can come out to your home and have a session with you there, right? Offer you that
Okay.
support. And they can directly talk to you, right? If your husband wants to be a part of that, they can talk with him too. Like it's great. It's free, so you wouldn't have to worry about any of that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's a
So
really cool thing that you guys are doing.
yeah, I would definitely put them there. You could put it next to
Okay.
the crisis line number or separate. It's the same number, so
Okay. Perfect. Yeah, I got that written down.
perfect. And then our last section is looking at your reasons for living. I know you said your kiddos are number
Mm.
one on that list.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely my kids. And um a lot of times like when I think about that, I think of like some of the traditions that I want to keep. I don't know if that's like something that normally goes in this section, but I really like I really want to be there when my kids get married. And I hope like I can see them like get their first kiss and like maybe I'm a romantic, but I love that kind of stuff and I just like can't really I just can't wait to see them grow up and like see the
Yeah.
people that they're going to be and I want to like I'm a big traveler, at least I was, and I want to like take them to see the world and I already have like a list of all these things I want to do with them when they're older because right now like I'm not gonna take them and spend a bunch of money on taking them somewhere they're not gonna remember, but I want to do that with them someday. And there's just things that I want to do and be to them as they grow up.
Yeah, looking into the future, I think is it's phenomenal, right? It's definitely something that you can add on to that list, right? All those little things that you hope to see, that you hope to accomplish, all those goals for sure. They're a huge
Yeah.
motivator.
Yeah, definitely. I just have to remember like the day-to-days are hard. And
Yeah.
sometimes like 18 feels so far away, but most days they're great.
Um, anything else you can think of?
Um, I mean, probably my husband, um, and my dogs.
Oh, yes, I feel you on that one.
Yeah, yeah. That's probably it. Just like family, you know?
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah. And like I said, you can always add and remove as needed, right?
Mhm.
Whether it's like you physically do it or you pull it out one day and go through the list and realize, oh, this isn't working. Let me do something else.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. And then just one more final check-in. I know you said you wouldn't do anything to harm yourself. Um,
Mhm.
and these are just thoughts of more like, if I didn't wake up, I'm okay. But I know that your husband was wanting to get firearms. I don't know if he ended up getting a firearm.
He did. He got a firearm, and I'm not very comfortable with firearms. It might just be my California background, and we just weren't. We were never big in guns, and so I made sure that he got like a gun safe, and I don't even
Good.
have like. I just have no interest in that, and so he has the gun safe, and he has the code and everything like that, and I don't even know it. And I really was super like I I was really, really like stern with him about putting it in a place like I don't even want my kids to see it. And
Right.
I mean that's something where we've kind of like butted heads because he wants to teach the kids how to do stuff like that, but I just think that they should be old enough to make their own decision on that. And I'm not a big fan, so we'll see. That's not gonna happen tomorrow. So
Okay. Good. Good. I'm glad that you took those precautions, right? Just wanted to give you a heads up that that's always something to look out for, right? Because it
Mhm.
is a potential danger to have in the home, right? Not just
Yeah.
for the kids, but also for your own safety.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And yeah, that was kind of my original concern. I'm just not a big gun person, but that's also something to think about too. So yeah.
Yeah, and any other like types of weapons that you might have in the home, also being very conscious of the fact that these are things that you can harm yourself with. And I know you said you don't have those thoughts, but just, you know, keeping that in mind for when you do get into these places.
Um, Not really. The only thing I could think of is like my husband had shoulder surgery a couple years ago, and so we have a lot of pills that are just like not usable. Like we don't use them, they're just sitting around. And I've always been kind of nervous about having those around the kids anyways, but I think that we could probably go through them and get rid of the ones that we don't need anymore.
Good. And I do have a couple of locations. If you guys need that information, then just let me know and I'll send you the text to the locations.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Of course. But yeah, that's basically your safety plan. How are you feeling about it?
I really like this, and I think it was just helpful to be able to talk through it, and it kind of just helped me note it, like realize that this was just a hard week, and I have a lot of good things in my life, and I'm more capable of the things that can make me feel better than I feel like I am, and so that was a good reminder. So thank you so much for helping me go
Absolutely.
through this.
Yeah, I mean, like you said yourself, right? You already have these strengths within yourself. Sometimes
Mhm.
a little nudge, a little reminder is all that's needed.
Yeah, definitely. And this is going to be a good reminder too.
Yeah, absolutely. And your homework for tonight is to actually take a picture of it. Keep it in your phone, right? Who doesn't have their phone nowadays? So
Right.
whenever you need that, when you're out at the grocery store with the kids, when you take them to the park, you have that just in case.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Okay, well, that's it for today. You did fantastic. Again, you're a great mother, you're a great person, and
Thank
I'm
you.
glad that you were able to vent some of these feelings out today.
Yeah, and it was so needed. Thank you so much.
Of course, you take care of yourself.
Thank you, you too.